The planet's relentless, unforgiving desert stretched before them. The wind howled with an intensity that could erode rock, sending plumes of sand into the air like an angry swarm of bees. The twin suns, setting in the west, cast long shadows over the cracked, parched earth. The landscape was harsh, unforgiving. Every step was a challenge, every breath a struggle. But it was home. To the humans, it was more than home. It was a testament to their endurance. They had adapted, evolved, and carved out a place for themselves on this violent, unpredictable world. Here, they had learned to not just survive, but to thrive, and that was something no alien could truly understand until they saw it with their own eyes. The alien bodyguards were not prepared for the full scope of what this meant. They were hired professionals trained in combat and survival, each one handpicked from a race known across the galaxy for their strength, their intelligence, their ability to survive in the most hostile of environments. They were known for their chitinous exoskeletons that provided natural armor, their quick reflexes, and their formidable weapons. They were often hired to guard the wealthy, to protect politicians, royalty, and other powerful figures who could afford their services. The family they were tasked with guarding now was one of these privileged few, humans, but not the typical Deathworlders they had read about in reports. No, this family was soft, peaceful. They were here to explore, to witness the marvels of a world that could kill you with a single wrong step. What they hadn't prepared for was the extraordinary force of nature that was the mother. She had been the quiet one, the one who spoke little but carried herself with a subtle confidence. She wasn't the warrior, the protector, the one who seemed as though they had been built for battle. No, she was a mother who loved her child fiercely, whose heart beat with a power that made all the might in the universe seem insignificant. The bodyguards, even with all their training, did not understand the true depth of the strength of this bond. Not until it was thrust before them in the form of that impossible act of raw, unbridled strength. The initial moment when the creature, an ancient, predatory beast that had been lurking beneath the surface of the desert for centuries, had snatched up the child, was one that still burned in the bodyguard's memories. In an instant, the tiny child had been caught in the claws of the beast, its massive pincers digging into the girl's clothing as the creature rose from the earth, snapping at the air, preparing to drag the child away into the barren wastelands. The bodyguards had immediately sprung into action, weapons raised, each moving with the speed and precision that was second nature to them. But in that moment of chaos, there was one thing that none of them had prepared for. The mother. She had been standing a few paces away, her eyes wide with horror as she saw her child yanked into the air. But in an instant, the expression on her face transformed. It was not the look of a woman who was helpless, not the look of someone who feared for their loved one. No, the bodyguard saw something different in her eyes, an unyielding fire, a raw determination that no alien species could possibly understand. She did not hesitate, did not waste time considering what was possible or impossible. She reacted. The power that surged through her was something that even the bodyguards could feel, like an electric charge in the air. The desert itself seemed to hold its breath as the mother surged forward, her feet digging into the ground, her back straightening with a force that was more than just physical. In one swift, almost fluid motion, she was upon the creature. The bodyguards could only watch in stunned silence as the woman's hands reached out with terrifying precision and gripped one of the creature's massive pincers. There was a moment of disbelief that hung in the air. How could she, a human, so small and fragile compared to this massive beast, possibly hope to succeed? But then, she did something that no one in the galaxy would have believed possible. She lifted. The woman's muscles, which had been defined by nothing more than motherhood and survival in the harshest of environments, contracted with an unimaginable force. Her entire body strained as she pulled, and then without warning, she wrenched the creature upward. The sheer physical impossibility of it struck the bodyguards like a bolt of lightning. They had seen strength in others before, yes, but this was beyond anything they had witnessed. The creature screeched in pain and confusion, its many limbs flailing as the woman's hands dug deeper into its armor, lifting with an unnatural speed and power. And then, with an almost primal roar, she tossed the creature away like a rag doll, sending it crashing into the rocky outcropping with a force that echoed across the plain. The bodyguard stood, unmoving, unable to fully comprehend what had just occurred. They were alien soldiers, taught to respect power, to fear it, and to break it when necessary. But this was a power they could not break, could not explain. The woman, trembling with exhaustion, cradled her child to her chest. The girl, still wide-eyed and in shock, clung to her mother, utterly unaware of the enormity of what had just transpired. The eldest bodyguard, Kyle Rock, was the first to speak, though his voice was a rasp, as though something deep inside him had been shaken loose. What? What just happened? His question hung in the air, though he knew there were no answers that could satisfy him. The other bodyguards were equally at a loss for words. Zal, the youngest, was still staring in disbelief at the woman, who was now kneeling beside her child, brushing away dirt and blood that had been left in the wake of the creature's claws. He had always known that humans were capable of extraordinary things, but this defied everything he had ever heard. Kyle Rack nodded slowly. His mind was racing, trying to piece together the impossible. He had faced entire armies of predators. He had fought off deadly alien species that could tear through armor like paper. He had seen warriors with weapons that could level entire cities in seconds. But the woman? She hadn't used any weapon, any technology, any superior intellect. She had used nothing but her own will and the force of her love for her child. She didn't just fight, Kyle Ruck murmured. She became the force. She was the storm. The rest of the bodyguards remained silent. No one knew what to say. In all their training, in all their years of experience, they had never encountered anything like this. The very idea that a single individual could possess this kind of power was beyond comprehension. For the mother, the moment was a blur, a flash of adrenaline, a surge of energy, and then an all-consuming relief that washed over her as the creature was thrown aside. She had acted without thought, without fear. It had been instinct, pure and simple, driven by one singular, unbreakable truth. Her child's life was at stake. There had been no choice but to act, no room for hesitation. It was the most primal and ancient response, the same response that had driven countless species across the stars to defend their young, to sacrifice everything for the continuation of their bloodline. But even now, in the aftermath, she was physically drained. Her arms ached, her chest burned with the effort, and she could feel the exhaustion creeping into her bones. Her heartbeat, once so frantic, was slowing, but her legs trembled beneath her. Her child, in her arms now, was safe. Her child was alive. That was all that mattered. The bodyguards slowly began to approach, unsure of how to address the woman who had just rewritten their understanding of strength. They were supposed to be the protectors, but in that moment, they had felt completely and utterly helpless. They had come to this death world expecting to guard the family from physical dangers, to use their training to neutralize threats. But what they had witnessed had been something far beyond their comprehension, and now they had a new understanding of the humans they were meant to protect. Kyle Rack was the first to break the silence. His voice was softer now, tinged with a respect that had never existed before. "You have strength," he said, his words halting, as if choosing them carefully. "Strength beyond anything we have seen." The woman, still breathing heavily, lifted her head and met Kyle Rack's gaze. She didn't speak at first, but then her voice came, quiet but firm. "It wasn't strength. It was love. And it will always be enough." Her words hit the bodyguards harder than any blow could. Kyle Rack stood there, processing. He had seen strength as a tool, a thing to wield, to conquer with. He had never considered that love, that the most powerful force in the universe, could be something to be wielded in such a way. The implications of that idea, of such a fundamental shift in understanding, rippled through his mind. In the moments that followed, the bodyguards gathered around, silent witnesses to a mother's extraordinary sacrifice. They would continue to protect the family, yes, but it was no longer just about guarding their lives against physical harm. No, it was about something deeper, something more profound. They were now bound by a shared understanding, something that transcended their training and their race. As the suns dipped below the horizon and the darkness of night settled over the Deathworld, the bodyguards, once powerful and confident, now walked with the weight of new knowledge. They had seen the raw power of a mother's love, and that knowledge would remain with them for the rest of their lives. They were no longer just hired hands, no longer mere bodyguards. They had been humbled by the strength that had defied the very laws of nature. And for the first time, they truly understood what it meant to be human.